Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Colby Plaskowitz, and I am the Associate Director of Development for Women in Philanthropy. The Women in Philanthropy Network is thrilled to host today's discussion. In harmony with our mission statement, the goal of this panel is to amplify and leverage the power of UConn women and our allies. UConn is already known as a university where women are champions, and we want to ensure the continued success of all of our women. Today, we are brought together by a common thread. We are all women and allies seeking to learn ways to build our brand and self-advocate. We have witnessed historic highs and lows for women in the past month alone. The first woman as Vice President of the United States, but also sky-high unemployment numbers for women. It is our hope that this hour-long personal conversation will inspire your ambitious convictions. I will introduce our first panelist, Barb Demaio. Barb is a successful entrepreneur, teacher, and coach who is passionate about people and growth. As CEO and founder of Solutions by Design, LLC, she provides business solutions to clients, leading to profitable growth and enhanced team performance. Barb has 30 years of experience in successful senior leadership roles, such as CEO, COO, and CFO of Fortune 100 companies. She is also a CPA, adjunct professor at UConn, and the proud mom of 3 UConn Huskies.
Hi, everybody. My name is Haley Seeger. I graduated UConn in 2017 with a degree in English. And in the past year or so, I've gotten really involved with UConn's entrepreneurial programs as I founded a startup swimwear line that I'm really excited about called One With. And my full-time day job, if you will, is being an influencer. So I started my YouTube channel at the age of 12 in 2008. So it'll be 13 years this July that I will have been making content. So, that has been quite a ride, and it's been awesome to see sort of the phases that, being an influencer and content creator has gone through. And I currently live in Milford with my ragdoll cat, Remy, who might make an appearance during this panel. So don't be surprised if you see a little tail run across the screen.
I said to myself, make sure you unmute on time. Hi, everyone. My name is Marilyn El Virio. So nice to be here today. I am also a UConn alum. I live in Connecticut, down on the shoreline in Essex Village. And my journey has been really interesting, something that you just never expect. When people ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up? You have no idea. But I have worked in the corporate arena for over 30 years, became an entrepreneur for 10 years, and I'm back in the corporate arena. My specialty is multicultural marketing strategy work. And also about I think 18 years ago now, I established an organization called Latinas in Power. So I am the founder and CEO of Latinas in Power, and we focus on building influential leaders and advocates, focusing on entry-level Latinas, career-level Latinas, entrepreneurs, and also high school students. And I also have a puppy that will make an appearance. My new rescue's name is Lily Pad. She's quiet right now, but who knows what's going to happen. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Hi, I'm Jen Rubin. I am reaching you all today from San Diego. Before you start thinking about getting jealous, we are having a very cold and rainy day here today. So to put it in perspective, I don't know if it's going to get out of the 50s. And for us, we put our puffy coats on when that happens. So I am a UConn alum, JD and BA, so double degrees, spent my whole academic career at UConn and produced a UConn child as well, also from the School of Engineering. And I am a partner with Mintz. I am an employment lawyer. I practice mostly company side employment representation, but I also represent executives. I also do a lot of work in the board governance sector, most recently in something called ESG, which is kind of a new strategy for corporate results that you may read about as you go through and do your daily reading. I moved to San Diego about 7 years ago because I was looking to make a change after I had sent my youngest to UConn. And it turned out to work out very, very well for me. So very happy to be here. I also have dogs. I have 2 pugs, but I'm not going to introduce them to you because otherwise you'll just see a flurry of hair. So there's no point.
Thank you all for taking the time to share your experiences and personal stories with us today. Jen, I'm going to have you start things off. Can you share, a story of an early on time where you had to advocate for yourself at work?
So it's a bit of a trick question for me because I'm paid to advocate. so that's, it's been in my bones from day one. It's what I've done. And it's funny, the way I ended up at law school was my roommate said to me, you really should be a lawyer, because it was just a constant, discussion. I like to think a discussion. She just decided you just need to go and do something with your ability to make arguments. So for me, everything's about advocacy. And for me, it's about not so much as advocating for me as understanding the benefit that I can bring to the other side. So that's my strategy as a lawyer. I think of myself as a very client-focused, fierce lawyer, doing, zealous advocacy for my clients. But it's always important from my perspective as a lawyer to be very clear when you're dealing with the other side and having them see the benefit of what you're trying to get them to come around to. So that's, instead of answering your specific question about the first time I advocate, there's a little bit of my advocacy strategies that I employ on a daily basis.
Absolutely. Thank you. Marilyn, did you have anything to add to that?
I'm reminded of the first time that I had to advocate for myself. I'm just remembered right now. And I was in high school. I grew up in New Britain, and so I grew up in inner city. So college was never something that was in the picture for us. My counselors told me that I was going to work at the bank or, as a secretary, which would have been fine. But University of Connecticut came out to the community to recruit during affirmative action days. And they had a program, a remedial program at UConn at the time. This is in the 70s. And they were recruiting Black and Latino students from high schools across the state of Connecticut. When they got to New Britain, I was one of the students that was interviewed. And at the time, there was going to be 18 Puerto Rican students graduating and about 30 Black students graduating. And they were selecting 2 from each group. So I went into this interview and I ended up advocating for myself to really articulate why it was that they should choose me. The interviews were scheduled for 15 to 20 minutes each, and I was in there for an hour and a half. And what I learned about myself is that I knew how to stand up for myself once I knew what I stood for. So I felt that that is something that is really important for people to know. What do you stand for? What do you believe in? What are your values? And that passion comes out in a way that is absolutely amazing. And that has carried me through my entire life when it comes to telling my story, when it comes to really being able to explain, like my pitch, whatever the pitch is, in really being able to understand it from the standpoint of who I am, what I believe in, and what my passion is. So that's where I start.
And we are so grateful that path led to UConn. You have been so influential as a student and an alumna, so thank you. And Barb, I know you had something to add.
Yeah, thanks. I want to share a situation if you ever find yourself in where you start in one field, but you unearth some interests and talents you have and you'd like to pursue a slightly different field. I had that happen to me early in my career. I am a CPA. I worked in public accounting for 4 years. And then I started journeying through the very phenomenal Cigna Leadership Program. It's a financial leadership program and principally would groom people for CFO type roles, which is phenomenal. Though along the way and with success, I realized I want to be the CEO someday. So how do I do that? And what I want people to be aware of is you can very much get typecasted into a certain role. When people see you being very successful, they assume that that's what you want to do. And you do have to advocate for yourself. I had to speak up and say, no, I don't really want to be the CFO. I enjoy it. It's good, but I'd like to have the opportunity. And I was given feedback at a very senior level that, well, you need to demonstrate that you can work in strategy and you can work in operations. And so I had to work across functionally to demonstrate those areas of capability. And then I ultimately succeeded and ran $1 billion business at one of my companies. But I had to go latticing through different areas of development to demonstrate the breadth that you need to run a business. So don't make the mistake of going too far in your functional area. If you truly aspire to run a business someday, you want to gain experience across multiple functions earlier in your career, because it's hard to do at a senior level.
And I think that speaks to our second theme today also, which is building your personal brand. And what does that mean? Haley, you've done an incredible job of doing that. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So to me, personal brand is everything, and it can mean so many different things depending on how you want to apply it. But to me, it was not long ago that I was actually on a panel talking about personal brand in and of itself, and what that means to someone who might not even be an influencer or might not be a content creator. What does personal brand mean just like in everyday life, right? And to me, what personal brand is like a great example of it is when someone points something out, or someone says something and someone says to me, oh, Haley, that sounds like something you'd say. That looks like something you'd wear. That sounds like something you'd do. And to me, that means I was successful in communicating my values, even something as, simple as like my personal aesthetics, my taste level, to the people around me. And in what I do, something that is so visual and so content-based, having a personal brand is everything. So when I get that comment back to me, like, Haley, that looks like you, that sounds like you. Again, to me, that's a measurement of success in, again, communicating myself and my values through everything that I do. So to me, that's personal brand. And that's how I kind of measure it in work, in life, in play. And it's everything to me.
And Nan, you've had a lot of experience here also. I'd love to hear your words of wisdom.
I do. I'd actually like to address the second part of this, which is how you start. I work closely with the Tory Burch Foundation, which supports women entrepreneurs at every step of their careers. And the number one question I get when I speak to these amazing women is, how do I start with personal brand? And I'll start by saying that it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something you can write or create in a day or even a week. It's something that is so critical to how you present yourself and your ideas to the world. It's what means the most to you in terms of your career. There are some, I've had to answer this so many times. I always think of I have a couple of bullet points on like how to start doing, because I thought about it, like, how would I do it? And it's really like what's authentic and personal to you. And then also, because, that's the number one thing, because if you're not sincere in anything that you put out there, it's not just going to be your mom calling you out. It's going to be, your customers, your social media following. They know in an instant, because, everybody is talking about this. And then the other thing is to not try to be too many things at once. I think a lot of small business owners and really anyone, they start out and they think that they have to be, hitting all of these pedals at the same time, like a giant corporation like Nike or something, and you can't. You start small and you keep building every step of the way, and always being open to changing the narrative when it doesn't feel right anymore, or you've evolved. And that's hard to do. It's sometimes hard to recognize, but if you trust your gut, everything's going to fall into place.
Absolutely. Those small steps and authenticity, I think, are so key for people to hear. And that's what it's all about. Absolutely. And I think, another aspect of that is building career confidence. Marilyn, you've been in so many different roles. How would you speak to building that career confidence?
Well, I believe that it really starts with how you prepare yourself to be taken seriously. And so for me, I learned really early on that there was a few things that I needed to nail. And I learned them sometimes the hard way. But one of them is as simple as showing up on time. And building that reputation around, hey, you're reliable. You have that trust that you can deliver. And when I say showing up on time, it doesn't always mean showing up on time. It sometimes means showing up before the time. So I had a manager at one point, it was a male manager, and he used to start his meetings at 10 a.m. And so if you needed to get there by 10 of, because he arrived at 5 of, and if you arrived after him, you were considered to be late. I mean, these are just like these little things that I just learned along the way, and they have really helped me. Also is do what you say. Do what you say you're going to do. Making sure that people can rely on you. Finish what you start. We have so many things in our head and things that we want to do, but finishing one thing at a time in a way where you're delivering quality as opposed to quantity, that also really builds your reputation so that you can be taken seriously and that people will look at you as a leader, as someone that they want to work on in their teams. And then the last thing I want to say about that is always have fun. We do serious things, and we can do serious things, but the important thing is to have fun doing it. I've had a career that has been so different in so many ways. I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry. I've worked in the airline industry. I've worked in the health industry, and I've also worked in financial services industry. And all along the way, I just felt like, I was doing things because that's what was expected of me. And it wasn't until like 20 years ago, really, that I started realizing, but I have so much fun when I do that, which is why I created Latinas in Power, because it was a platform that was allowing me to share what I learned with other Latinas, to hand them, give them that hand up that I didn't feel like I had growing up. And I have so much passion for it, that I have so much fun with it. And that's one of the reasons I believe that it's become so successful. So having fun is really important.
Absolutely. Barb, did you want to add something?
Yes, actually, I want to build on that. I think you have to find joy in uncertainty. So it starts with your character and your integrity and everything that Haley and Nan and Marilyn have said. And you build on that through consistency, through results, through constant learning. Setting goals and achieving them goes a long way to building confidence. But if you don't challenge yourself and take some risks, you're really not going to grow. And that puts you out of your comfort zone. And the most exponential rotations I ever had, I had no idea what I was doing when I joined. And I had enough credentials and track record that people saw in me somebody that could contribute. And I had to learn very quickly how to make a difference in an uncertain area. And to do that requires not only confidence, it requires courage. So when you'll know you're there when you can be enjoying the discomfort of not knowing what you're doing, but have sufficient confidence in your ability to drop into a situation and add value and make a difference and leave it better than it was when you got there. So I feel that when you're enjoying uncertainty, you have achieved career confidence.
Absolutely. And what an uncertain world we're living in right now. I think that's so valuable. Absolutely. And Jen, you as a lawyer and as someone who moved across the nation, do you have anything to add?
So funny because all of these comments really resonate with me because that's exactly what I did. I took a huge risk. But here's the important thing. First of all, I put myself in a position to take the risk. Okay, so I lived my life. I didn't live on the financial edge. I lived my life maybe a little more conservatively so that I could make some decisions that really were intended to address what I was passionate about. And I wasn't afraid to fail. And a lot of people, when I did this, I'd been practicing law for 25 years and to pick up and move across country. And by the way, take a bar exam in a state which is notorious for people failing out of law school, let alone practicing attorneys. And yes, I passed in the first try. But the point is, it was okay, because if I had failed, I would have taken it again. Or if I had failed, maybe I would have come back to Connecticut and reinstituted my practice here. So I really embraced it's going to be really interesting and fun, and let me try and do it. And it really worked out well. And just to kind of add a point, I hate to bring this to football, but for me, I watch Patrick Mahomes play, and the reason I'm so overjoyed in watching him play is because of the joy he expresses, okay? And when you as a person, and all of you have kind of talked about this in one way or another, when you express that joy in everything you do, obviously I'm not an NFL quarterback, nor will I ever be, but I think approach my practice and what I do with the passion and joy that I try and display to other people so that they want to come along with me. And that's part of leadership. So it's a little harder to say, how do you find it? Because sometimes that's a process for all of us. Some find it quicker than others. But having the courage to explore that process, I think, is really important.
Jen, I'd like to add to what you're saying, which is so true. I think sometimes career confidence comes down to a subtle shift in your mindset. So, you could be looking at a job or a new position, a new role, and you say, I only have 18 out of the 20 requirements. And you need to flip that script and think, I have so many of these requirements, plus I have all these other amazing things that I can do. So you're sort of talking yourself all the time into, you can do it. It's just switching the narrative a little bit.
Absolutely. As women, we are so unlikely to go for that job if there are just a few requirements we hit, and we don't hit, rather. And I think that's such a valuable feedback, Nan. And it is so important to bring your passion to work. And Haley, you've done an incredible job of melding your passions with a dream job. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you bring confidence into, your ventures.
Absolutely. Yeah, I guess so. There's two quotes, if I'm going to generalize, there's two quotes that I basically live by that have to do with self-esteem one and confidence the other. So there's a quote, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to know the sources, but probably my favorite quote ever is, confidence isn't they will like me. Confidence is I'll be fine if they don't. So it's not walking into a room being like, oh, I got this. It's going to be a breeze. They're going to love me. It's, you know what, even if they don't love me, it's all good. I'll be fine. And that's just kind of how I live my life. And I absolutely bring that into both of my respective ventures. And then the quote that I love about self-esteem, and I totally use this in work as well, is self-esteem is built on making and keeping promises to yourself. So basically, if I tell myself I'm going to the gym tonight and I don't go to the gym tonight, or if it's something work related, I'm going to do this today, I'm going to pitch 7 people today, and I don't do that, the only person I'm kidding and cheaping myself out would be myself, right? So making those promises to yourself, keeping them in a really rigid way is what helped me build my self-esteem and my confidence in life and in the workplace. So just being really, really serious about yourself.
And Barb, I think I might have seen you go off mute earlier. I'd love to hear if you have anything else to add.
Well, just to add on that very point, it's so important to not only trust yourself, but to engender that trust with others, because that accelerates business results. So trust is the speed of business. And if you want to accelerate your own career, create that brand for being high integrity, get results, figure it out if you don't know how, and gain some sponsors that will help you accelerate your career. These are the people that see talent in you, and they give you opportunities that you may not feel confident enough for yourself, but they drop you into those opportunities, and you do your very best and you shine and your career accelerates. And the only other tidbit I want to add is mentorship is very important. And mentorship is about seeking out experts in areas that you want to learn, or areas that you've deemed important to your current challenge or assignment. And if you find those people in other disciplines, in other areas, and it doesn't even need to be confined to the company or the academic setting, you will be successful because you're drawing on their expertise. And I feel like there are women who help other women, and there's a growing force of women who do that. And we need to help people learn from everything that we learned, sometimes the hard way.
And also, Barb, you know, and making sure that you let those people know, whether it's a mentor or a champion, that you want feedback, that you want, that it doesn't have to always be good feedback, that the negative feedback or feedback that helps you improve, you know, how you carry yourself, how you articulate, how you do whatever it is so important to have, because, you know, that builds the kind of confidence when, you know, we second guess ourselves all the time. Like, should I say that? Should I not say that? How should I say that? And so when you get to a point where someone says, hey, you know, I love what you're doing, maybe you should think about this, you know, and incorporating that and taking that feedback, incorporating it into your personality and into your personal brand, then that also helps build the kind of confidence that you need to keep going and growing.
I think those are really great examples of resources that you can use to boost your career and your career confidence. But I'd love to hear if others are using different resources. Nan, do you have any other tips and tricks?
I agree with what everybody said. For me, what's been critical at every step of my career, especially, you know, that moment where I went from being on one side of the fence to the other, from the journalist to inside the brand, I've always had a group of mentors that I check in with on a regular basis, especially when I'm about to do something relatively big. And they're not just people in my industry, they're people from, there's actually a professor at UConn I still check in with every once in a while. And so it's been critical to me because these people know me, they know my career path, and, you know, they have insights that I don't always think about, I don't think about. So to me, the mentors have been critical in my career. And they include old bosses too. Even if you've left a company, it's always great to leave on good terms and, you know, to always check in and say, how's it going? Wonder if you have a couple of minutes to talk. And I find that everybody's willing to do it. They're always willing to help. So.
Absolutely. And Jen, you know, as a lawyer and as someone who's advocating for others, do you have any recommendations?
I have two comments. So first of all, I do spend a lot of time as an employment lawyer representing clients in employment negotiations. How do you get more money? And I'd like to think I'm pretty good at that. But the funny thing is the way that I think I really hone my skills is through a nonprofit I volunteer for. I help Navy SEALs and special operators as they transition out of service into the private sector. And I started doing that about 6 years ago. Another one of these great reasons to move to San Diego, I kind of got plopped into the special warfare community here. Never in my life, by the way, did I imagine I would end up working with a bunch of Navy SEALs. But the point is that they taught me a lot about how they need help in advocating. It was almost like going back to stage one in terms of how do you do this. But you know, my very quick tidbits on that are do your research. Oh, so important. Get your data in hand, whether it's anecdotal, sitting down, you know, at the computer, whatever it may be, doing your research, because the more information you have about the value of the job, the easier you're going to be able to advocate that benefit you are bringing to that organization. So really preparing for those discussions is really important. So anyway, that's a whole other, maybe that'll be your next webinar. I think there's so much to be done, and especially women who sometimes feel unsure. It's perfectly okay to ask for things, by the way, but make sure you have the data to back it up. The other thing I want to point out, and this is something that that brings me a lot of joy, is when I mentor, especially young lawyers, especially young women lawyers coming up through the ranks, I learn so much from them that then informs how I behave as a lawyer, as a practitioner, as a leader in my firm. So I would recommend to everybody, whether it's, reaching down to high school students or reaching up, whatever it may be, the feedback you learn from helping other people, I think just makes you a more well-rounded human. And, a more well-rounded human, you can then be more effective in whatever your profession is.
Can I just add on that, the more well-rounded human? I love that, Jen, and it's so, so important because, often people feel like, okay, what are the resources? Who can give me this? Who can help me with that? But we also need to think about reversing that, and what do I bring to the table that I can give back? So it's not a one-way street. In mentoring today, we talk about reverse mentoring. And reverse mentoring in corporate America is when you have a junior level person that is working with a senior level executive in an organization, and they're having this dialogue where they're helping each other. I think that's just so absolutely phenomenal. So I want us to make sure that we understand how important that is to give us that whole holistic feel of, we feel good about ourselves because we're also contributing. The second thing I wanted to talk about on resources is women's networks. Most companies have employee networks or BRGs or whatever it is. Join them. Those are how you can really connect with other women, other like-minded people that are interested in success. Not everybody is interested in success, but if you are interested in having some level of success, then it is important for you to connect with other people like yourself that can support you, that could stand you up when you need that help. So most companies have it. There's lots of free organizations out there. Some of them are paid organizations, but those networks to me is how I was able to build most of the platforms that I have been able to build, is because I can pick up the phone and say, hey, Barb, do you know anybody who knows somebody who knows somebody? I mean, like, that's how it works. It could be 6 levels degree, and we can do that with each other and not feel like I need to find out, how you did this weekend. No, I mean, like, we have this relationship. We build this network of supporting each other in a way where we can just feel okay with tapping into each other's connections. People are afraid that if I know someone, for example, and they're afraid to call me and say, oh, Marilyn, I know you know that celebrity. Do you think that, you can connect me or whatever it is? Let's stop being afraid. There's this new article that just came out, which I think is phenomenal. It's about how women are always saying, I'm sorry. And I think it came out this weekend. It was pretty big. But we are constantly worried about, in Spanish, we call it no me atrevo. I don't dare ask. It's a no me atrevo is something really big in our culture. And it stops us from being able to expand, our resources and our networks. So anyway, I just think that women need to take that risk, to be courageous, and to change that attitude that we have sometimes, and expand our comfort zone. Like, be okay with expanding that comfort zone so that you can, even if you fail, or even if it doesn't come out right, go ahead and do it. When I was growing up, oh my gosh, standing in front of people to talk was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to do that. I don't think that I could say boo. And I'm a public speaker now. It was because I tried. Now, there were times in the beginning when I had verbal diarrhea. Oh, I don't know if I could say that here, but I did. I mean, it was horrible. I'm like, and you learn from those mistakes because you're stretching that comfort zone to try something different. Resources.
Actually, I'd like to pile on and say Marilyn is 100% correct in the future of where things are going. I'm old enough to know what it used to be like 30 years ago in business, where women didn't always help women. And there are some kind of people that, men and women, do this, that they get the power and they get the control and they really don't bring others along. And I think it's incumbent upon us and all of you who are watching to not be that kind of woman, to be the kind of woman who's going to pay it forward. I had the opportunity when I was at Aetna. I was one of 10 women. We started the Women's Leadership Board, and I was tasked to start up the Mentorship and Sponsorship chapter at Aetna. And we grew that chapter from 0 to at least 65 while I was still there, and I'm sure it's still thriving. And what was our purpose? Our purpose was to help people with their personal goals and branding, networking, mentorship, and gaining sponsors. Everything we've been talking about here, it exists in good companies. It exists everywhere. You need to take initiative to get into those programs, in addition to meeting people from all walks of life and all functional disciplines, regardless of what your job is. You need to go wide and learn before you go up, and then you can bring others along.
Absolutely. There is great power in networks, especially in networks of women. And that is exactly why we host panels like these, especially by women in philanthropy. And we hope that by attending events like these or connecting on LinkedIn, that people, especially UConn alumna, are able to build their community, their network, and their confidence. And Haley, I'd love to hear from you as a younger alum. What resources have you turned to?
Absolutely. So UConn has been a huge resource for me. UConn has basically been there every step of the way since I kind of linked up with them post-graduation when I was founding One With, which is my swimwear line. So that's been a major resource. I also joined a female-centric co-working space. So if anybody is watching this and these, the idea of tapping into a network can seem a little lofty, like where do I start with that? I love like tangible, tactile advice I can give. And if you have any sort of female-centric co-working space near you, the one I go to is Haven in Darien. And that's been a massive, massive resource for me. Just in terms of people being super supportive, people offering help in what I'm doing, being able to collaborate with the other members there. That's been awesome. And, it's something that there's obviously a fee in joining something like that, but again, it's an easy way, low, barrier for entry kind of thing that you can get into very easily. Again, if you're wondering, the easiest way to join a sort of female-centric community.
I think that's great. And that's such a nice example of the future of the workforce, especially for women, to have that community to work in one space with. And Barb, you touched on this a little bit, but what do you see as the future of women in the workplace?
Sky's the limit. I mean, we can do anything we want. I think the most important advice I would give to everyone listening is believe in yourself, because I didn't. And every time I was successful, I was like surprised. And as I mentioned earlier, there were people who sponsored me and believed in me, and I went to the top. And then I was trying to help other women get to break through. And how we did that was by being human, connecting to people on a personal level. Everybody's unique. Everyone has a different set of unique skills and talents. And I define success as the external manifestation of your internal giftedness. So when you reach that equilibrium where you are who you are in every setting, and Haley has mastered this, she's mastered the consistency of impressions that get you a place where you're known for your brand. To me, that is success. It is not about title. It is not about money. It isn't even necessarily about the typical rising the ladder, but how you do it is by being yourself and believing that you can, and having the courage to ask for help. I can't emphasize that we used to have to pretend. And, the earlier messages used to be confident, act confident until you really are. Well, no, I really think vulnerability is the way. Humility is the way. Being honest is the way. And the more I've done that in my career, the quicker I have accelerated. It's kind of the paradox of the humility. It gives you opportunity to connect with people. And I think that's what we can do for each other. Say, I have no idea what I'm doing, but this is what I'm doing. And what else should I be doing? Ask those questions. I was teaching my first UConn class when I started my business 5 years ago. And I teach accounting because I am a CPA and I was an accounting grad back in the 80s, and 1987 to be exact. And my students were like, "Professor, like, how did you know what to do?" And I said, "I didn't. I just went step by step and asked other entrepreneurs what they did." And the networks form and you start to help each other. So I think it's about your identity aligning with your purpose, and it's about humility, vulnerability, and authenticity. And then you can do anything you want in life. Believe in yourself.
I wish I could be a little bit more optimistic about the future of, women in the workplace. There's a ton of opportunities. However, we still are living in a world where we have a glass ceiling, a glass floor, a glass wall. And so it's important that we recognize that and then prepare ourselves for the kind of leadership skills that are going to be needed to break through that. And when I talk about preparing ourselves for the kind of leadership skills, I went to this I go to a lot of women's conferences. And so I went to this women's conference once where Jamie Lee Curtis was the speaker. And I'll never forget it. I mean, it was like a long time ago, maybe 15 years ago. But she said, opportunity comes with preparedness. And that always stuck with me, that always prepare yourself. Then when the opportunity happens, then you have a shot at it. So when you are interested in something, when you have passion around something, find out what it is you need to have as a skill in order to be good at that, so that then you can prepare yourself for that. I think that when we're talking about preparing ourselves, for when the opportunity happens, we also need to look at our ability to influence others. And Jen touched on this a little bit, but our ability to influence others so that when we do have that pitch and that we could kind of get people on board with our idea, that's a skill. Because you have to be able to maneuver the waters of, what are other people interested in? How do we bring that together? I do a lot of work and thinking around inclusion. And so inclusion is a word that is part of my vocabulary all the time. It's not just about what Marilyn is interested in. It's not just about what Marilyn is good at. Identifying what others are also good at so that you can bring them into the circle. And how do we pass that on? So how do you, when you're in an opportunity, you're in a networking session and someone says, "Hey, do you know anybody that knows how to do this?" You can pull from your network and say, "Oh, Barb does that. Oh, Jen does that from my network." So learn how to make sure that others know what you know how to do. So there's that saying that goes, how does it go? It's who you know. So it's not always who you know, it's who knows what you know how to do so that they can articulate that with others. And then the last thing I wanted to say about that is really decide if you want to be in the game. If you want to be a player in this game and you want to be successful in your career. And, you know, life is happening all around us, but there's still, you know, there is, I'm sure you've heard this, but 3 kinds of people in this world. One is people that make things happen, people that watch things happen, and people that like wonder what happened. And so decide, you know, what group you want to be in order for you to then be in that position where, you know, you have a shot at it and you are taking advantage of the many opportunities that are going to be coming up for women, especially now in the time that we live in, with all those powerful women in the White House and in politics.
Just want to mention a book tip, because Marilyn, I so agree with you. It's called Love is the Killer App, APP. Love is the Killer App, APP. Somebody gave it to me when I went from Cigna to a different company, Mass Mutual, to get my strategy experience. I needed to run a business someday. And it is about sharing your network, sharing your knowledge, and always helping and servicing others first. It is the paradox of success. And if you do that, the better you do that, the more you do that, it comes back to you multiplied. And it's not what was taught many years ago. No. It is the way of the future. And I want to encourage you to get that book. There's a million others. I happen to be a closet librarian, plenty of book tips, but that would be a great one for the future of business. It's teamwork. It's inclusivity. We all win together. And when people know what you're strong at, you can learn and leverage each other better for community success, not just individual success. It's about the collective. Anyway, I love following your comments because you have a lot of good statements there. Thank you.
I found that the more time I spent volunteering, whether it's through the Honor Foundation, which is serves the Navy SEALs, or the Women's Bar Association here in San Diego, or 2020 Women on Boards, which by the way is now rebranded as 50-50 Women on Boards. All of you should be thinking about board service, by the way, every single one of you. But I found that once I started spending more time looking outward as to philanthropy, just to bring it all together, my career started to take off. I mean, this year I was elected to the firm's executive committee, which is, you know, pretty meaningful as a lawyer in a large law firm. And I don't think it's a kind of a surprise. I think it's because I have this central focus on having a positive impact on the community. And it's made me a better lawyer. It's made me a better partner. I think it made me a better human. So something every single person can do at every level of your career, every stage.
Absolutely. And Nan, I'd love to hear from you as well as someone working for and right alongside a female CEO.
I have to say it's amazing working for a female-led company. Just it's a new perspective, and you really see just how impactful a group of people can be, a group of women can be when they come together, they decide they want to do something. It's very clear focus. And I will say, because I am one, a group of moms who get together, you know, there's no dilly-dally. You get it done. And I want to say that, you know, especially now, this is such an incredible moment for us to be living in, that, you know, we have our first woman. She's a person of color who's in the White House. And I think that's going to go a long way in, you know, influencing younger girls who are coming up, grade school, high school, and then also breaking down some of those established gender stereotypes that do exist, unfortunately. And I think critical will be, you know, women supporting women at every step of the way, making sure just, you know, our hiring practices are inclusive and diverse. And then, you know, as a peer, making sure you're always celebrating the person sitting next to you. I don't know anyone who can do it on their own. So, you know, that to me is the biggest thing. It's like, it's about celebrating the people you work with, the people you want to work with. And that's, I think it resonates with everything that everybody else has already said.
Absolutely. And we just have about 5 minutes left. So I'd love for everyone to go around and offer any last remarks and advice that they'd like to leave for the listeners today.
Well, I'll start out. So I mentioned throughout this conversation that success is for those that want it. You know, and one of the things that, like a lot of women that come to my conference, Latinas in Power, that inspires them is that they see themselves up on stage, that they connect with, you know, they go, look, I go to a lot of women's conferences and a lot of times I don't see Latinas up on the stage. And so envision yourself up on that stage and just keep that idea that if you're not invited to the party, if you don't have a seat at the table, make your own table. This is what I did with Latinas in Power. I felt that there was a gap for Latinas to have people looking out for them and having people that they can connect with. So I created this network that now 18 years later is become global. And it is because we didn't have a seat at the table. So we created our own table. So that's my last tip that I will leave to everyone.
So that's fantastic. Congratulations on that. I would say all things are possible if you believe in yourself and you work hard with integrity, take some risks, have a plan, be consistent. And one of my favorite quotes is Ralph Waldo Emerson: "Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm. Have fun. It is life. Make it worth living. Make it an adventure. It's yours."
Thank you. I think passion and preparation are two of the biggest takeaways from today. Haley, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I think in closing thoughts, just to relate back to the theme of the day, just in terms of self-advocacy, I think that just moving forward, I think I was going to say this before about another question, but I was fortunate enough to be raised by two parents who never highlighted that I was a girl. I'm one of three girls. But they never said to us, oh, you can't do that because you're a girl, or, oh, join the girls team or something like that. I watched my father coach a co-ed soccer team. Like that divide was never that apparent to me. And I think that that's kind of what has led me to like trudge through life the way that I have thus far is almost being like semi-blissfully ignorant to the fact that someone might see me, you know, as not having the authority that a male counterpart might. So I think that moving through being a woman in the workplace, being a professional woman, with that mentality has only helped me. And thank you to my parents, if they're watching, for raising me like that. And I hope too that other people might be able to, again, kind of be blissfully ignorant a little bit to the barriers and the divide that we might be up against, but still, of course, being aware of what we are up against, but kind of acting as though nothing is stopping you. Because in reality, echoing what everybody else has said, truthfully, you can be up against anything if you put your mind to it. So that's my cue. Thank you so much for having me. And it was great listening to everybody today.
I'll have Nan follow next, and we'll close with Jen.
So I would say in closing, the best advice I can give is to trust your gut, do as much research as you can, absorb every piece of information that comes your way, and to not be afraid to ask questions of anybody and anyone. You know, don't dismiss the cold call and how much you can get out of that. You see someone in the network who you think would be able to help you or guide you. call them, send them an email. It's, you know, people want to help. And for every person that doesn't respond, you're going to get 50 people who do.
And I would say, first of all, thank you. It's been great to do this with all of you, and a wonderful job, Colby and everybody, on pulling this together. My closing thought's pretty simple. Think about how much you get by giving. At the end of the day, it's just the exponential relationship of what I get by giving, whether it's time, talent, treasure, resources, whatever it may be. What I get is it's infinite. So, and I'm very appreciative of that.
And I want to thank all of you. Thank you for taking the time to participate as panelists. Thank you to all of our listeners who joined in on this discussion. You know, as I said earlier, this was hosted by Women in Philanthropy. We will continue to host virtual discussions throughout the year. Our next discussion will be on February 9th, where we discuss the leadership gap and the paradigm for parity. So please join us February 9th at 3 p.m. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It was
So nice to meet
all of you.
What a great group of women.
Yeah, let's stay connected. That'd be
love
I'm
it.
sending out my connect request right now to all of you. So
Okay.
don't be surprised. It's not
Thank
spam.
you.
Thank you. Everyone, have an awesome day.
Okay. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.